Welcome to Boundless Pursuit, a weekly podcast providing motivation, entertainment, and education to anglers and outdoorsmen. I hope that the stories you'll find here will encourage you to chase your passion more fervently, to open your mind to new opportunities and perspectives. Your engagement and feedback is critical to the growth of this show, and I would love to hear your suggestions on topics or potential guests. You can reach me at boundlesspursuitfishing@gmail.com or at my website, www.boundless-pursuit.com. That's where you'll find all related articles, media, and merchandise. Please remember, the show will gain traction from your support. Be sure to like, comment, and share this podcast to your friends and connections. I'm your host, David Graham. Now let's get on to today's episode. You know, as anglers at our core, we all have that interest in the big one. And as human beings, we're drawn to the idea of monsters from an early age. And our imagination tells us that those monsters thrive in those tucked away, dark, hidden places. In the closet, under your bed, the trolls that live under the bridges, and those beasts that live in the caves. As people and as anglers, we are stimulated by the thought of monsters unknown and that creature that goes bump in the night. And while monsters may not be real, the Goliath grouper is. That is the monster that lives under the bridge. That is the monster that lives in those dark, tucked away places. Growing upwards of 500 pounds, the Goliath grouper can eat most people's personal best fish like jelly beans. It is the quintessential monster fish. And if that's so, you can call today's guest a monster slayer. Gavin Schulz is a thrill-seeking young angler with a real knack for chasing these giant fish, and he does it from land. I came across images of Gavin on Instagram, photo after photo of him taking down these absolute beast fish. I have a personal interest in chasing Goliaths from the beach. It's something that I love to do personally. It's something I've written about, so I knew that this would be a fun conversation. And Gavin is just another one of those South Florida wild boys, keen on catching the biggest fish that he can find from shore, and he is damn good at it. If you like big fish, the Goliath grouper is aptly named. It doesn't get much bigger. And Gavin brings a lot of knowledge and experience to their pursuit and into this conversation. I think a lot of people don't realize just how accessible these giant fish can be from shore. A lot of folks think Goliath grouper is one of those fish you have to be way out offshore, over a wreck, in a boat, over deep water. And while sometimes that may be the case, under the right conditions and the right circumstances, you can catch these fish relatively close to shore. You can catch them with your feet buried in the sand. And Gavin's Instagram is proof of that. He brings a lot of knowledge into this conversation, a lot of experience for how you can do it. And if you just like a big fish story, it really doesn't get all that much bigger. This is a really cool conversation with a young dude chasing monster fish, and I think you're going to like this one. This is Gavin Schulz. All right. So we'll pretty much just jump right in, but glad you were able to get a little bit of an extra nap in, because I guess you were out fishing last night. I mean, how late were you out?
I went over to the east coast of Florida. It was like 3 hours away, and we got out there about sunset and fished till like 5 a.m., but, you know, no sleep all night. It catches up. You got to sleep at some point.
So how much sleep are you operating on right now?
I got like a 3.5 hour nap.
Oh my gosh.
Between like 1 and now.
Are you a big energy drink guy? Did you pound any like 5-hour energies or anything?
Last night I did. Yeah, I do like my energy drinks on the beach. They keep me going.
Right. Yeah.
Keep me from falling asleep. Yeah, you definitely need those.
Well, I guess the most important question is, what did you catch? Anything other than...
We did get a nice bull shark.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, we were hoping for something a little nicer, but that's better than nothing.
Better than making that 3-hour drive to go get skunked. So yeah. I've been there. Then you make that drive a shame back. Yeah, I was over on the East Coast this weekend, but I wasn't trying to catch. I was a little bit trying to catch sharks, but I went over there to meet up with this. David Rocca. Do you follow him?
Yeah,
he said he knows you.
All those big jacks. Yeah,
the big jacks. Yeah. So I've been following him for a while, and I'm like, man, I want to go do that like
Yeah.
slinging those big plugs for jacks.
Yeah, he does the GT style. That's dope.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No one else does that. That's what I like about
I
that.
know that's what's cool, and I had him on
Yeah.
here because I was like, dude, it's so weird because in Florida, especially where like everybody else is a fisherman, for
Mhm.
you to be like the only guy that does anything is rare. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that
Cool.
there aren't people, not that there aren't other guys doing it, but it's like it's hard to be the guy of something in Florida
Yeah.
where it's like
Yeah.
it's just too many. But yeah, I've been wanting to go over there and link up with him for a while, but he was working late, so I was just out there kind of like blind casting, hoping for the
Yeah.
best, and I didn't know what I was doing. I casted for hours and hours and hours. I got like one questionable bite on like the backside of a breaker, but
Yeah.
I think it was a shark because I saw brown or I saw like dark. And
Using one of those big poppers.
yeah, I used the big old giant poppers, but
Nice.
but then he showed up and we did a little bit, but I don't know, we just couldn't get into the jacks, but I did get a big black tip on the popper, which I never caught a shark on an artificial, so that was kind of cool. But
I haven't done that either. That's pretty cool.
it was cool, but we were on the jetties, so I have no photos to show for it.
Yeah.
It was like
There's no fun way to land that one.
no, it was hell. It was a lot of fun though. It was kind of a fun like introductory because I don't know, I don't do much jetty fishing, but we were on like the as the jetty, the further down the jetty goes, like the surface of this thing was like skating on ice. It's like covered in moss. So we're slipping around, and he has one pair of like cleated boots, so you can stick like with the spikes on the bottom. All right, he's like, all right, so you wear one boot and I wear the other boot. I mean, it's just ghetto as hell. Like I got one good boot. He's got one good boot.
Hey, he tried to make it work for you.
Yeah, and then this damn thing. I mean, it smashed this popper right at the jetties, and it's heading into the rocks. And I'm doing everything I can to stop it, but it's like when you really crank down on it, then you got to plant your feet. I got one good foot, my other foot's slipping around, and he's sitting there holding on to me so I don't fall. I'm like, this sucks. Like this is a lot of work for a freaking black tip, but it was cool. And then I don't know. I mean, you know how it is. It's like you just can't be an idiot. It's like if we sit here and screw around trying to take pictures, the fish is gonna die. Like I had to like rappel down this jetty, get down into the rocks. And I'm like holding this black tip.
Too. Those things freak out.
Oh yeah. Well, it's got treble hooks all in its face too, and then I have it like at my groin, like in between my legs, pushed up against the jetty. I'm like, this ain't no way to.
Not a good situation.
Play around and get castrated by a black tip.
Yeah, not the way to do it.
Yeah, so I had to make that. I wasn't about to drive home late though. I just pulled over on Alligator Alley at one of them rest stops. And I just slept there in my Jeep. Yeah. But anyway, this ain't about me. This is about you. And well, that's cool. You were just out there doing it. But so your stuff though that like really interested me. Like I love the shark stuff. I've had a couple of land-based shark guys come on, but for you, it's like I don't know, dude. I'm like all about these Goliaths. Like I've only lived in Florida for going on 5 years.
Yeah.
And like that was one of the fish when I moved out here that I really wanted to catch. But I was sitting here thinking you got to be in a boat. You got to be like fishing wrecks and like I didn't know anything about them. And then I kind of got turned on to the idea of catching them from land. And it just seems like such a more unique spin on it. And then I see your page. And dude, you seem like you've just got them like dialed in. So I don't know. I mean, I guess just tell me how you got into that scene.
Yeah, we get a lot of them over here just while we're shark fishing, and they just pick up our baits. But so we have a certain spot we go to that they pretty much just stack up in, and generally like in the winter months, like in the cooler months, like now, you could count on at least one Goliath every night. You go out there. We're just using little small baits. Most people think you're catching Goliaths, you need a giant bait. We're using baits that are all like 3 to 4 inches long, little cuts of mullet and like ladyfish and stuff like that.
That's interesting. Well, I kind of fall into that category of people that use. Well, I usually use like a whole mullet is what I've been using, but it's probably more so because it's such an easy bait to get a hold of.
Yeah,
but
everything eats it. I mean, most of the Goliaths I catch, like the big ones, are really small baits.
Yeah. Is that like a recent thing? I mean, like I scrolled through your page and got all the way down to the bottom where it looks like you were doing a little more the smallmouth thing. We may get into a discussion about that as well, but like some point you graduate from smallmouth bass to like it's got ironically a Goliath almost looks like a giant like
Yeah, it pretty much is a giant
Enormous smallmouth.
Yes, yes.
But just I don't know, dude. Just like tell me about like how you got to the point of where you're. I don't know. I don't know if you're necessarily even fishing
Yeah,
for them or are you just happening to catch
yeah.
them while you're shark fishing.
Um, well, we catch a lot just while shark fishing, but there is certain times, like you could generally go to like any bridge in Florida, put down a bait, good chance you're gonna get smacked by a Goliath. They're pretty much everywhere. But
Right.
I didn't really get when I first moved here, I wasn't aware that the Goliaths would come in that close to shore. I always thought it was an offshore fish as well. Like you'd have to go on a boat and get out on a wreck and fish for them. And I used to always watch the videos. I'm like, dude, how do these guys even reel these things in? Or, you've seen the videos of the black tip baits, all big muscle dudes on the boat. They're in there
Right.
cranking these Goliaths up, and they're looking like they're about to freaking pass out or something.
Yeah.
But it's really not that difficult from the shore.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more enjoyable for sure.
I can attest to that because it seems like when they're able to pull down, it's like you gotta like
good luck. Dude.
Yeah, you gotta like deal with that in your back, but it's like it's so much better. I don't know from the beach because you're like it's pulling out and just across, so it's like a little bit better. But
and a lot of people picture like you need like a big 80 wide or a big 50 wide or something to crank them in. Most of these Goliaths we catch off the beach, we're using like I use like Avid, like LX, like HXW, so like 4/0 size, conventional reels, or I even catch big ones on I have like a 12-foot surf rod with just like an 8,000 spinning reel.
Yeah.
Enough,
I saw that. I saw the pictures with the spinning gear. I'm like, oh man, I gotta ask about that one because that's like a different. That's like a different spin on all of this. But because that was kind of what I was curious about. Is sort of like your approach to finding them. I mean, I agree. It seems like down here, and I'm in Southwest Florida as well. I'm down in Naples, but it's like it seems like almost every bridge you look for, every pass, every bridge near a pass.
Yeah.
They're all at least some Goliaths on them, but it's like it's also a lot of times kind of hard to find access to a beach where you can like angle out. But like, just tell me like your approach. Like when you find a good bridge, how are you deciding like where to set up? Are you like kind of like paddling out at an angle? Are you in line with the bridge? I mean, or assuming it's even a bridge, or if you've got rock piles or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you generally Goliaths are always going to be close to some type of structure, and usually when you hook one on the beach, they know where they want to go to get away, and sometimes they do, and you just can't do nothing about it.
All right,
but you still get some in though for sure.
Right. So when you're are you usually like kayaking the bait out?
Yeah.
Other than when you're surf casting, obviously, but I think more often than not, you're probably using conventional gear.
I like the conventional gear because it takes too long on the spinning reel. But I use conventional gear, and like say I usually like when we set up on the beach, put our pipes in, spread them out a little bit. We use like these big sand anchors to keep our bait down. I mean, you had that Terra Firma tackle guy on here, like his anchors he makes for like shark fishing.
Yeah, because that's what I was curious about is like the kind of rigging. Yeah, because I was curious about like the sort of rigs that you prefer, because obviously, the nature of chasing the Goliaths is like you're going to be near structure, like you're gonna be like almost in the structure.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to kind of have a rig that can contend with the current
from moving around.
Yeah, and rubbing against pilings if heaven forbid they get in that. But like I don't know, just kind of walk me through like what your whole setup looks like from the rod to the reel, which you already kind of alluded to the reel, but like even from the spool all the way to the hook, like what does the progression of your rig look like from leader material to the size hook and everything?
Generally on like those lighter, like 4/0 size conventional setups I was telling you about, like something big enough that you could cast with, so you don't always have to kayak, which is also a good thing. It gives you versatility there. You don't have to kayak the bait like with a big reel. But I usually do like 80-pound braid, like backing all the way through, and then throw on like 150 yards or 200 yards of like 80-pound top shot.
Okay.
Mono, and that's usually all right. And then I do like this time of year, I always like to have my shark leaders like as long as I would expect the shark to catch on it, because the tail, they'll whip it with the
Tail
tail.
smacking it, yeah.
Yeah. So like this time of year, like when we have all the sandbar sharks around here, they're all like 6 to 7 feet. So I got like 6 to 7 feet of 400-pound mono, and then I got that to a swivel, and then probably like a foot and a half of like 300-pound wire. And then I don't use very big hooks. I use like 12-aught to 14-aught, just smaller, more low key hooks.
Yeah.
for the smaller
Yeah,
baits.
because that's what I was kind of curious. If you're like going after the Goliaths, are you using wire or are you just doing straight mono? I know some people do a little bit of both,
I use
but
wire because I always, if a shark bites,
in
I want to
case
catch
of the
them.
sharks, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't care about the wire. I mean, I catch giant tarpon on shark rigs with full wire and everything. They eat the same thing.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I'd seen your tarpon photos, and I want to get into that a little bit because I'm like, man, he must be like getting these on like shark baits or
On
something.
the
But
same stuff.
now when you're sending baits out, are you usually doing cut bait? Do you ever try live bait or like what
We
is your
do.
like? Are
Whenever
you
we
pretty
get,
indiscriminate about like the species of fish you're using for bait, or if you found like the Goliaths kind of have like a real
well,
preference for?
there's kind of like certain times of the year you want to use certain things, So like around Christmas time down here, New Year's, we get like our big mullet run.
Mhm.
And that time of year, you could go out and you could throw the net and you could catch like, coolers full of mullet.
Right.
And so whenever we were catching them like that, we were catching them good enough that we could, hey, we'll hook one on, put them out live, see what happens. But you don't really need to do that. They eat the dead bait better, and the live bait moves around, and you get more problems that way.
Right. Yep. Yep. They'll find their way into the hiding
But yeah,
spots. Yeah, your
yeah.
damn live your bait wants to hide. I'd always wondered about there's just obnoxious amount of catfish around here. I'm like, I gotta find a use for these little bastards. Have you tried
People
the
use
catfish?
them. Yes, I have seen people use them on bridges for Goliaths. Like they'll go out and catch like a couple hardhead. I've even seen sail cats get eaten, but leaving live ones, hook them through the nose, throw them on a bridge piling, and I've seen people just they get
Yeah.
whacked.
Sometimes
And
it
I've heard
seems like
people
maybe
catch, people catch tarpon on like cut catfish. I've heard of that.
right, yeah, I've heard that
Just
too.
like
I'd always wondered if
stuff.
people were just trying to get me to go away when they say that whole catfish
Yeah.
tail thing for tarpon, but
Yeah.
you hear it enough times, it's like, okay, there must be something to this.
Yeah.
But man, the catfish around here just drive me nuts. I'm like, I don't have to figure out a use for these little bastards. And then I've caught a few of the juvenile grouper around Naples in the mangroves and stuff. And it's like every other one spits up a half-eaten catfish. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, surely the big ones are eating it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. So it's like, I don't know. I guess it seems like the most important thing when you're tying into these things is probably more drag capacity or
Yeah, so I use like Avid, like the Raptor series reel, so they give out a little more drag. But like I said, like with those conventionals versus the spinning reel, it's gonna take you about 15 to 20 minutes to get them in on the conventional, and then my spinning reel setup, you got at least an hour and a half, like because you just don't got the leverage,
Yeah.
Can't really.
And then
move
you
'em.
just got to hope that they're swimming away from the
Yeah, make sure they don't.
structure, I guess.
Gotta get a little lucky.
Yeah, that's nuts. So it's like that's not really an option. Usually, like I do a lot of mine around like Sanibel or other areas where a lot of times I'm paddling 100 yards. So it's like spin gear is just not. It ain't happening. But and I don't know your opinion on it. Like, you watch those videos to your point. Like it looks like this intense, amazing fight. Like where it's just like giving you everything you want, and it's like I don't know. From the beach, it's like I know it's like the sharks are way more of an exciting fight, but it's just like I don't know. Maybe it's how cool the photos are, but I know too that like when it comes to the Goliaths, there's a sort of like responsibility as a sportsman or a proper angler to use proper fish handling skills, but it's also like a tremendously powerful animal. So like when you're bringing these things up into the shallows, like do you have sort of like, I know every responsible land-based guy seems to have like their program in place for like having your gear ready for what you got to do to get a quick release, get your photos in. Like, just walk me through your process when you've hooked one of these things and you're bringing it to the beach.
Yeah, so these guys that we catch off the beach, just about every one of them, once you get them like coming in, about to beach them, they float up.
Yep.
So they're just like, and they float right in, and I pretty much just go up. They have like this little bone thing. I don't know how to describe it. It's like part of their jaw. And I grab them by that because I don't like grabbing them by the gills because they got sharp gill rakers, and it's not good for the gills anyways. And they got really sharp teeth, which I found that out early on. You can't whip them fast.
No. I made the mistake too. Even with gloves, the first one I caught, when I was out solo, I had some gloves on. I'm like, this will be all right.
Oh, yeah.
That sucker clamped down and started like going like this and just buzzsawed straight through the gloves.
Bunch of little needles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, what was I saying again? When we're landing them. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we land them, they pretty much float in. I grab them. I just pop the hook out, and the spot we go to, it's generally like just a little bit of water on the beach, that you could like let him sit in, so he's not all the way out of the water. It's not good to take the big ones all the way out, because I've seen people like they take them all the way out and then they put them back, and he's like floating around, kind of just taking a sec, like he can't get his buoyancy back, to go back down.
Right.
But generally, they're very hardy fish. They're not like they don't die on you, Like you there, you post them up, take a picture with them, and they fly off. They do.
Yeah, so because I've done a little bit of it with them, and I sort of found the same thing. It's like you kind of have to find that like happy medium between getting them like up shallow enough to where, I don't know, you can handle them, and if you're able to get photos, do it, but also not doing something illegal and drawing negative attention. But then I know I had another situation with one time where I was out there by myself, and I tried to handle them in like thigh deep water, and like you were describing, they roll over and they're sort of like catatonic. Soon as I rolled this thing back upright, it was like that sucker woke up, and it was like waking up an angry grizzly bear. And when it decided it wanted to get away from me, you ain't stopping them.
Couldn't do nothing.
And it shook loose from me and overpowered me, and my rig had gotten like wrapped around my leg. This damn thing was like pulling me out there.
Oh God.
So it's like you have to like find that happy medium between like your own safety and then the safety of the fish. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm always like interested, like people's, I don't know, program for making sure you're getting in there and getting out of there quickly and moving fast, because that's especially, I'd say even more so than the sharks. It's like one of those beloved fish by like the local people. And if your photos get out there and they look a certain sort of way, you might get a knock on the door.
Yeah, you do anything wrong nowadays and you put it on Instagram, they'll let you know.
Yeah.
They'll let you know.
But I don't know. I mean, are you getting out there with like, for me, it's always been one of those fish that has generated like a lot of buzz. Like it's like if I put those photos out there, like everybody, like, it gets.
Generally, everybody loves to see a picture of a big Goliath. It's exciting for people. I love bringing people out that have never seen it before, because their first reactions, it's always priceless.
All right.
Seeing something like that doesn't even look real for the first time.
It's one of those funny fish too, to where it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those ones. This will be a fun side of the conversation, because it's like I've noticed it's one of those fish that is just like surrounded by different opinions. Like there's two different sides of like people who think they're eating everything in their path and they're detrimental to other fish around, and other people think that they're maybe not as crazy voracious as they seem. I know, like for me, like the Sanibel Causeway, I'll fish there a lot. And dude, there is a Goliath on every single one of those pilings. There isn't a single piling that doesn't have one. Like if you drop an underwater camera down there, they are there. But you can also go out there at any point during the day or night and drop baits. You may have to sit there for 6, 7, 8 hours with no bites. So I'm like, okay, well, hell, are these things really that stupid? I mean, I know there's a Goliath down there that sees this bait and is not eating it, but it's kind of curious. Like you've got more experience than me, but like, what is your like perception of the fish and like just the nature of the fish?
Yeah. So I've noticed with Goliaths, they really like the slack tide. So like the tide switches. So generally your best bet at catching Goliaths are on the tide switches, like on those bridges or anywhere really, because they're kind of just lazy fish. They kind of just sit in the current, when it's ripping, and then once it slacks up, they kind of go around, they search, and generally when you get bites. But Goliaths, I love catching them. They're awesome fish, you know. I don't think they need to. I think that little what was it? There's like a lottery, like five to like keep them. You get like a little tiny baby
Yeah.
slot,
Or yeah.
$500 to enter a lottery for it. Yeah, that's I'm not a big fan of that, but yeah, I'm glad they closed them back in, I guess, what was it, 1990?
hmm
They're everywhere now. Like
Yeah.
I've caught there's a couple that I know I've caught multiple times, like just by comparing pictures, and looking at their patterns and everything, because they're all different. No two
Right.
look. It's pretty cool.
And they seem like they like to stay on the same spot. I know I've got a few
Yeah,
spots. Like it's funny you mentioned that. I know I've got a few spots down here in Naples and like different mangrove creeks where I'll go and catch the juveniles. It's that's almost more fun than the big ones.
yeah.
And like
The
the
little
tight
dudes are
creeks.
strong too.
Oh
Pound for
yeah.
pound.
You
Ooh,
catch them in like the little tight creeks out of a canoe or something. I mean, that's a blast. But
yeah.
I had a buddy of mine come down from Virginia and took him out to do it, and he caught one. Like, I mean, it's just instantaneous in this one little area. And got his photos, and then I happened to be looking at one of my photos and then his photo, and I went back and forth. I'm like, this was from months apart. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's the same damn fish from the exact same spot. So I think
yeah,
that's probably a big reason why the ones on some parts of the causeway. I think that you're just catching a lot of times you're just catching the same fish over and over. But
yeah,
it's like the interesting thing to me is the idea of the ones that are out on the reefs that are eating everything. Like they're like they are
yeah.
the reason. Like they
Mm.
are like they're like the idea from especially anglers is that they are the reason that we're seeing less snappers. We're seeing less of the
Yeah.
desired species. And I was kind of
I do.
curious, like if you buy into that idea or if you think
Yeah.
that's true.
I always hear that about like Goliaths and sharks. Like the two fish that I love going after the most. Like most people when they go out, they want to go, for eating fish.
Mm-hmm.
But and then they want to blame it on the sharks and the Goliaths for being less eating fish. Well, the problem is people. There's too many people taking a boatload of fish every day for however long. It
Yeah.
adds up.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where people underestimate how smart, like, they do definitely come off as a big idiot fish. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I remember like the biggest impression I had of Goliath was over on the East Coast. I was fishing with a buddy of mine and we went out to this one wreck and it's like the bait spot, this particular wreck. It's where,
Yeah.
a lot of the charters and the captains and the what have you go out there to get bait.
Mm.
Great bait spot. But people are fishing the wreck too. But dude, it was like I mean, it's like clockwork. As soon as you pull up over the top of this wreck, I think it's the same one you see all those YouTubers
Oh,
fishing
okay.
over the top of because the Goliaths that are so conditioned to stealing baits like or stealing catches.
Yeah.
Like we would look over the edge of the boat and you just see these shadowy things looking up at you. Like they're waiting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I think if they weren't so used to the easy meals coming their way, like, it's almost kind of like the same that you see with alligators in certain areas down here.
Yeah. They get, they adapt, what's
Right.
easy, what's best.
So I'm
Like
like,
a lot of the Goliaths I catch over here, like I have them, they spit up crabs. A lot
yeah,
of the times, the whole stone crabs, because that's really all they could really catch
right.
by themselves. Just going around on the bottom. And I'm sure a lot of times, I put my bait out there, it's sitting good while, nothing's happening. I'm sure some crabs get on it, and he sees the
Yeah.
crabs and comes up and probably smacks it.
Yeah. Yeah. The crabs are like an attractant to your
Yeah,
bait. That's a
yeah.
good
So
point. But my
sure,
impression though, as an outsider looking in with not a lot of saltwater experience, I didn't have like I don't know, the preconceived ideas about a Goliath. I'm just there to make observations on my own.
yeah,
And we're over the wreck. Man, there's boats everywhere around us. It was like everything the guy I could do, like the guy I was with, it was everything he could do to like keep the boat in position and not bump into
yeah,
other boats. So I'm like looking around, I'm like, okay, are the Goliaths eating everything? I mean, I'm talking it's no mercy out there. The
yeah.
other boats. I'm like, people are pulling in everything left and right. But then at the same time, it's like I feel like if a Goliath sees a snapper swim by normally, like in its natural state, they're
Mhm.
probably not chasing them. They're not fast. But if they see one that's on the end of a hook that's struggling and moving around, it's like it triggers that like a different kind of
Mhm.
response.
For sure.
So I'm like, well, are they really eating everything? Or are you feeding the Goliaths at some point? Like
It's pretty
you're,
much that. Yeah.
but it's one of those interesting debates. I'd rather like sit on the outside and listen in on people who know what they're talking about with it. But
yeah, like I've never really had to deal with like Goliath stealing my fish or anything like that. Like I've yet to experience that, but they're definitely loaded over here. You know?
yeah, I think it's a bigger problem in some of those areas that are like really hammered by anglers. Like they've gotten to a point where they've patterned boats, and they know that a boat like what I just said is like when we pulled up, the Goliaths came over and waited. They knew it was like, all right, you're gonna bring me my meal. So
yeah, the same deal over there. Like you go on a boat over on the East Coast, you're gonna see some sharks pull up next to your boat, and they want to see what you got. See if you catch anything.
So I think it's more so that than them just swimming around eating everything in their path, because I think I've kind of seen the same thing. It's like I think in their normal circumstances, they're eating mostly slow moving, like stupid bottom dwelling fish. Yeah, and crabs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's interesting.
I've seen videos of some guy fishing off of like a bridge. I think it was in Fort Myers, but he saw a Goliath grab like a big cow nose, and in the video you could see the Goliath like straight down over the bridge. You could just see like the back end of this cow nose just sticking out of this thing's mouth.
Yeah.
So they're really just opportunistic. They'll eat whatever.
Right. Well, I think that's probably just their role in the ecosystem. Yeah, they're like the cleanup crew. They're there to just grab the slow and unweary and stupid animals and population control, I guess. But it's just it's just one of those fish that's kind of like, man, you can't help but like when you go to like the aquarium and you got all these different fish in the tank, it's like everybody's going to sit there and want to stare at the big grouper that's in there. But
just like a giant bass, everyone's first fish is usually a bass, and that's just like the
and I think that's like model. I think that's like part of the allure of the fish is that it resembles a bass so much, like the body structure, like but
they get huge.
Like for you, what would you say is like the biggest one that you've caught or encountered or seen caught or maybe lost?
Like I hear stories of like they get up to 800 pounds, but I don't know. I kind of find that hard to believe. Like
I agree.
We catch, like, we don't weigh them, obviously. We just kind of estimate. So I would estimate like the biggest ones I've seen are probably like in the 400 to 500 range, probably like 450.
Yeah.
That seems to be the biggest I've seen. And they're huge. They're like 6 foot long with like a 4 foot girth, like it's big fish.
Yeah.
But it's hard to believe, like picture an 800 pounder though.
I know. I've seen that too. I guess it's possible. There's always those like crazy outliers of every fish. It's like, what? That's things in a whole other category. But
I'm sure there's a giant one out there like that somewhere. But
yeah. I think it's amazing how much water those things can push with that big old tail. It's like when you start to get them in close and it looks like manatee swirls.
Yeah, I've been playing with my GoPro a little bit, just like taking videos of them underwater, and you can see it's basically just like a giant broom tail.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool.
But yeah, I don't know. So your interest is probably, I see that you do a lot of the land-based shark fishing thing too. Yeah. Are you kind of probably lean more into the shark thing, or are you just cool with?
Well, I do love catching big sharks more. Just sharks in general more, just because of the fight. Like the sharks doing most of the work. Most of the time, he's just running, and then you got to gain on.
Yeah.
With the Goliaths, like, don't get me wrong, they're fun. But after, like, there's some nights you go out there, you hook 4 or 5, and you keep hooking them. You're like, oh, that's another Goliath.
I know.
They kind of sit there, and you have to really do the work and just crank them dead weight most of the time. But
I know, I feel like a giant ray or something. But I agree. The few times I've gone and done it, it's like it's usually like one of those one and done things for me. Unless I get like kind of like it's too small. I'm like, I got to get a bigger one.
Yeah.
Normally after you get about one, I'm like, I'm going home. I'm done.
Yeah. But definitely prefer catching sharks. I don't know. It just excites me. Big sharks excite me.
I think it's a more dynamic fight because they're actually like, I've never had a Goliath really peel off like drag. They're not.
Don't get me wrong. Like they pull drag, but it's not like fast. You know how like shark would do. Like you hook into a big hammerhead, it's like you just hooked into a moving car going 40 miles an hour. Like it's like what?
Right?
You don't know what to do.
Well, one of the ones that I've seen on your page that obviously was an attention grabber is the big sawfish.
Yeah,
I saw a photo of a big. It looks like a big one too. I mean, tell me a little bit about that. Have you caught more than one, or is that just
Yeah,
sort of like, you
I
get out
caught
there
that.
long enough, you just get lucky, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at the spot I caught him at, no one's ever heard of anyone ever catching sawfish out there. So I mean,
Uh-huh.
I was amazed, and everyone else, that I fished with was amazed by it, obviously. But I caught my first one. It was like last April, um, and it was just on a little tiny bait once again, a little small chunk of ladyfish, literally that
Yeah.
big. And all I did was cast it out. There was a good bit of people at the spot we fished at that night. There's like two groups of people on each side set
Mhm.
up. Nobody had a bait out though. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna put something out, 'cause I'm trying to catch,
What were they
get
waiting for?
out there. Yeah,
The
if you're
right
out there.
tide?
Yeah, I think the tide was just ripping the wrong way.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I was like, all right, I'm gonna fire one out there. You never know.
Yeah.
And the tide was ripping out. My rod's like bent over, just barely hanging out of the bottom. And I heard like I had my drag pretty tight, and I heard it go steady. I'm like, what is that? It kind of surprised me. And
Yeah.
the whole time I was thinking like big Goliath, like just kind of how it fought, because sawfish fight really unique. Like you hook into them, and they dump like a shark. Like it's like
Yeah.
big run, and then at some point he just stops, and you're
Oh,
like,
that's interesting.
what? Did I get stuck? Did I get like rocked up? And you're sitting on it, giving it all you got, like just trying to move it. I think I passed it around to like two of my friends to like just try and move it, just put pressure on it. And it took I think three guys to finally get him up and off the bottom.
Yeah.
And then if it wasn't for 2-speed on that reel I had, I don't think I would have been able to get that thing in. And you just winch them little by little.
Yeah, because they're almost like, I don't know. It's like if you took they're sort of built like a ray on the front
Yeah,
end.
the way they act, like the way they swim and the way their mouth is and how they can
Yeah.
stick to the bottom is like a ray. But they're giant, and I mean the body's like a shark. I mean,
That's
there's nothing
another
like
one. That's
the
another
coolest
one when I see those photos and they're in the shallows. Like at some point you had to get in there, I guess, to get to the
Oh,
rig.
yeah.
I mean, what was
Yeah,
that like?
it was intense, but it was awesome at the same time. Biggest
Yeah.
adrenaline rush. But after bringing them in, they look at you and they know what their one little defense is. So the whole time trying to do this, and 13-footer, I got it on video of it swinging its saw back and forth, and the thing's able to basically do like a whole 180 and just turn all the way around on you if it wants to.
Jeez.
Yeah,
So,
and that was
how
awesome.
do you get to the rig? You just kind of go for it and have to risk it?
Yeah, I mean they have like a stingray mouse, it's all the way up at the bottom. There's
Yep.
really no safe way to get to it, so we pretty much just took wire cutters. My buddy Austin did it,
Yeah.
and he just got as close as he could and just nipped it like right next to the jaw. And they're both hooked in the corner, so eventually, it'll work its way out. It was a smaller circle hook; it'll be good.
Yeah, it makes sense because I look at that. I'm like, I don't know how anybody ever gets the hook out. I think you just can't. But it also seems like
Nah.
their rostrum ends up getting tangled in the rig and tangled
Yeah,
in the.
it's just not worth it. It's not
Yeah.
worth putting stress on them of trying to get it out and
Yep.
everything. They really are like the most endangered marine fish in the whole world. Like if you Google it, like they've been around. They
Yeah.
could estimate there's as few as like 500, as many as 2,000 in the whole world, and they pretty much only live like in our little part of Florida.
Yeah.
Been
That's
around
one of those
since
ones
the
that it's like, man, I do not want to go to my grave before seeing one. I just want to like see one in person. It's
Yeah,
such a cool looking animal, but
yeah, it was
yeah,
amazing.
my wife had seen them in the Caloosahatchee River, like way upriver. She was paddleboarding out behind her house and saw like the young little, the
A
little
lot of
pups
a lot of the small ones, they move
swimming
into.
together, like two of them together. I was like, that's an interesting
Yeah.
behavior. Like,
That's cool. I hear a lot of like the small ones up on the flats, and then like both of those big sawfish I caught. Like the first one was probably like 13 feet, and then like a month later, the other one was probably like 11 and a half, 12 foot. They're both males in the same spot. My guess was they were heading up inshore to spawn.
yeah,
Because it was like springtime, and like you say, all the way up in the inshore waters. That's where come into contact with sawfish, small ones. And the
yeah,
big
those
boys.
things are
They
those things are
travel.
nuts.
Yeah, I saw 3 of them last year. I mean, I saw one more other person hook one off the pier here in Venice. Ended up breaking it off, but that's 3 big sawfish I saw last spring. Like I've never seen one before that. It's
Right.
pretty cool. Hopefully, more and more.
Yeah. Yeah, those things are. That's one of those ones. It's like it's always like the one that'll keep you from scrolling too much. You can swipe and look through
Yeah.
people's pictures. Like, oh man.
Like, dang,
But,
son.
But you can't, yeah, but you can't go after them. It's just like, I don't know. You put baits out there and maybe secretly hope to get
Yeah, you
to see
gotta get
something,
lucky.
but
That's it.
right.
I wasn't planning on, catching one of those that night. It just happened.
Yeah. Well, I haven't even messed around on the beaches around here ever since the storm. I just
Yeah,
haven't been.
it's been sucky. Like, I said I went over to the East Coast yesterday. It's because the red tide, like we keep getting red tide popping
Yeah.
up every time we get a freaking cold front nowadays.
Yeah.
So
And the water's just been nasty out there. There's all kinds of
yeah,
crap floating around.
yeah, it's terrible.
But maybe next year. I like doing it on Sanibel. Occasionally I'll go a little further north than that, but anyway, do you ever do the Goliath stuff from the bridges, or are you just strictly dropping baits like
I prefer to just do it off the beach, but like when I first started fishing down here, I was fishing for them a good bit off bridges and stuff. And there's this one bridge I go to. They sit on the like the two channels. There's like big lights on both the what are they called? The fenders.
yeah.
And there's probably three or four like 300+ pound Goliaths just sitting in the light, cruising, waiting.
Yeah.
It's just cool to see them like that. You don't always see that
Right.
big fish light. It's pretty
Well, I
much what
don't.
it is.
I could sit here and talk about the big giant ones this whole time, but then I saw, when I was looking through your page, that it goes like from these Goliaths and tarpon and sharks and sawfish, and then all of a sudden it's like smallmouth bass and like bass fishing. So
Yeah,
it's like, is that home to you? Is like,
yeah. That's what I grew up doing. I grew up in Ohio.
okay,
No one in my family really fished like at all, so I didn't
yeah,
have really anybody to like teach me and be like, here, son. But my mom, she moved to a pond when I was next to a pond when I was like 12. And I think she took me to Walmart one day and I got me a nice little push button pole, and then
there
went
you
out
go.
to the pond and we caught some bluegill, and I thought that was cool. And then I would go out there every day, and I'd be like, hey ma, I went out and caught 100 bluegill today. You know, I would level up from there. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go catch some bass now.
Yeah.
And then I remember when I first saw like carp in the pond,
Mm.
like grass carp.
Yeah.
I was like, "Dude, what is that? Like, it looks like a shark." I would see like the big shadows of them out in the pond. I was like, all right, I gotta catch one of those. And so I would go out, and there's little like berries that would drop in the pond. I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out how to catch carp because I'm like, what? How do I catch carp? They don't eat, they don't
Yeah.
eat
Throwing
like
throwing spinner baits
bait.
at them and
Yeah,
stuff.
no, they don't do that. And so I was like reading up. I'm like, bread, like bread
Hmm.
won't work. The bluegills will chew it up. And so it taught me like a big lesson in fishing is you always be observant of what's around you. Like you can't just read everything that you're gonna want to know. And but basically, like there's these little berries that go out in the pond and they float. And so I would just hook a little berry on my push button pole, cast her out there. I caught like a nice grass carp, and from there, you just kind of work up from there. Like
Right.
when I was in high school and whatnot, I was big, and me and my friend Luke, we used to do the bass fishing tournaments, like
Hmm.
because that's all we really had up there was the bass fishing, and so that's what we did up there. And then my friend Luke, the same one that I used to always fish with back in high school, he brought me down here. I want to say we were like probably 15, and I just came down here with his family. I think we went to Anna Maria Island.
Hmm.
And like that was the first time I really got to experience like Florida fishing. Like we were catching snook off the beach,
Yeah.
little tiny sharks that were like this big, but I thought it was so cool.
Right. Yeah.
We go out, we went on a charter boat and we just fished inshore a little bit. I was just loving it, and at that point I was like, that's like 10 times more exciting to me than going bass fishing because
Yeah.
out here you don't know what you're gonna catch. You don't know even like what to expect. I
Yeah.
mean, every day it's always different. And so I kind of got into shark fishing. I want to say I was like 16 or 17. And I would always watch YouTube videos. And I'm seeing all these people catch big fish from the beach, and I'm like, oh, why couldn't I do that?
Yeah.
And so I was just doing my research on everything I could, about like this was just like basics, like just a casting rod. You're going to the beach, catching like a little white and cutting it up and putting it out.
Hmm.
I think we went to like Hilton Head, South Carolina,
Okay.
just like with the family.
Yeah,
And
I'm from South Carolina. I know that area
okay,
pretty well.
cool. Yeah, so I was just going out there. I bought like a $40 Amazon rod
Yeah.
and like a little cheap reel. and I was just going out there casting whatever I could, catching, little black tips and stuff. And like the next year I came back, caught like a nice lemon shark, and I just knew like that was the type of fishing that really excites me because like I don't know how it could ever get old, like there's so many things you could do and so many things that could happen. It's really never the same thing twice.
Right. No, I always like those stories of like the progression as an angler, especially because that's like my history is probably similar to yours. Like you were sort of just doing it on your own.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of the guys that start like that, where you're just like learning yourself. Not that like it's good to have mentors, but a lot of the people where it was like their grandpa taught them, and it's like they all sort of I don't know. Ironically, those seem to be the people who don't like. I don't know. They just stay in one like little category of fishing.
Yeah, I mean, the probably the best piece of advice I would have for like learning stuff from people and fishing is like meet people that actually do it themselves. People that could show you something different. Not you don't always want to be the guy teaching people. You want to get it's good to go out, ask questions, and learn from people that have done it.
I think it's always good too to like approach everybody's like input with a little bit of skepticism because I had just for whatever like the carp thing is a good example. You could have very easily had somebody be like, "Oh, you don't want to catch carp. That's a trash fish." But I
remember hearing that and I was like, "What do you mean? That's the biggest fish in the pond. What are you talking about?
It's a 40-pound fish. I don't care what it is.
That's a monster."
Yeah. No, I vividly remember when I was first coming up fishing, like when it was first becoming a thing for me. Like we would go to this golf course ponds, me and my brothers, and it was bluegill and bass. And like that's just what it was. It's like you have to catch bluegill and bass. I'm like, I mean, this is okay. I just wasn't sold on fishing yet. And it was for me, it was kind of the same thing. It was a grass carp that I saw in like the margins of this golf course pond. I just see these scales. Like it didn't even register to me that it was a fish. I just see this big round mass with scale pattern. And like, I'm like, it didn't even like my brain didn't process that I was looking at a living animal. And then I just see the scales moving. And that was like the first time I saw a carp. I'm like, I've got to catch that.
Yeah, for sure. And they look a lot like a tarpon just because like, their big scales, like something about the big scales gravitates me towards it,
Right. And then you just go on this endless quest from there of not being able to be satisfied with a smaller fish. And before you know it, you're catching 400-pound Goliath grouper.
Hey, you just got to keep going. Keep going.
Well, where are you going to go from here? It's like, I don't know. I love to know, like, you're already doing something pretty casually. Like, you're rattling this whole Goliath thing off pretty casually. And I don't know if you've had similar, like I had done like a little bit of Goliath stuff and wrote about it and blogged about it. And I even still every now and then I'll get somebody out of the blue that just messages me that really wants to go and do this. Like, do you kind of get the same thing? Like people are all about the Goliath. So like you're doing something sort of casually that's on a lot of people's like bucket list.
Yeah. I mean, we catch them a lot. And like whenever I have someone down here that I know, like from school or whatever, I love to take them down. I have people that from out of state that like they found my Instagram and and they just message me like, "Hey, if you take me out fishing, I'll pay you, however much, and we'll go out." I'm like, "All right, good deal," because
all right,
regardless of being paid or not, I really just love showing people something they've never seen before, something that I so much of, like it's always fun to bring someone else, get their reaction of it,
Well, do you have anything like I don't know lined up or like? Do you have anything personally like? I mean, like something like for yourself. Do you have anything that's like, all right, I want to make a trip for myself? Like, is there anything on your bucket list? If we're going to be talking about
for like land-based fishing or just like fishing in general.
Well, anything.
Well, I think I'm gonna try and make a trip to Hawaii this year with my friend Jin from he lives in California. He's one of the guys that calls me up and he comes fishing whenever he's in town.
Yeah, that's cool.
He just found my Instagram a couple of years ago, and whenever he's around, I take him and he goes on crazy trips all over the place. Like he goes to
go fishing in Hawaii.
Yeah, like marlin fishing, like on boats. Go, I guess they had GTs over there off the rocks. Like they catch.
Oh yeah. They got some interesting spots up there where it's like I might be wrong, but I think they might have somewhere it's like I don't want to say like locals only, but like I've watched a few of the videos there where they catch real giant ones, and I don't know if it's like how many people can get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, GTs, that's an easy sell right there. That's on like everybody's bucket list there.
Yeah, GTs are cool. There's so many places that like I want to go and just, you know, visit and fish. Like I could start rattling them off.
I
You
know.
know,
I get that same way
Australia,
too.
definitely got to go there someday.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
That's a special place.
that's another one. I gotta slow my roll sometimes because like, you think about where we live right now, even in Southwest Florida is like
We live in a pretty awesome
I mean,
spot.
we're in paradise and I find myself all the time thinking of like where can I go this year that's not Florida? I'm like, I need to like
Yeah.
I haven't even caught a big tarpon yet. Like I've had a couple shots at them and they like gotten off and they've just like
Yeah.
kicked my tail.
You ever get
Like
out during like tarpon season, like on boats?
no, that's my thing is like I don't have I had a boat when I first moved down here, then we sold it. So now I'm like
Yeah.
pretty much resigning myself to being a canoe angler for a while. And
I
and
know people that catch them out of the canoe.
I do too. I do too. And I really I want to link
Yeah.
I know well, I have had one shot at it one night, and it's funny. Like I'll go up in like the Peace River and try to catch. There's big ones there. There's big ones up in the rivers,
Mhm.
and but all that ever happens to me is I get smoked by the little bull sharks. Just take all my bait,
Yeah.
and then ironically, I went out on the Caloosahatchee not that long ago, and I wanted to catch the bull sharks. I was like, I'm just gonna go out and play around with these little bull shark pups, and I ended up hooking a big old giant tarpon out of my canoe, and this thing just destroyed me. I didn't even come close.
Honestly.
But and then me and my brother went out with a charter one time out in Boca, like Boca Grand Pass, and
Yeah.
I don't know, man, like that one just wasn't for me. Like it just wasn't my style. I don't know. Like we hooked them left and right, and they're all coming off, and they're all taking us down into the school and breaking us off in the school.
Well, I feel like fishing in Boca Pass would be just a pain because of how many
It
boats
wasn't.
there are.
There was
and
boats all
it's deep.
around us. Like people's tarpon
Yeah.
are jumping in other people's boats.
Yeah.
I'm like this
Typically,
kind
when
of
I've done, it's like we're fishing off like the open beach. You're really just cruising the beach and you're looking for the rollers.
yeah.
See where they're coming. You know, you get set up, anchor up, or tromotor down, or whatever, and you pretty much just kind of get ahead of wherever they're coming.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of need to just throw it out and hope that they run into your bait because
Yeah.
they're not like any other fish where like they see it and they'll chase it down. Like they're not going to work for it. If it's in their face, you're just going to suck it in.
I need to slow my roll and knock off some of the fish we have around here, but I end up getting ahead of myself and start dreaming, passing up all the awesome fishing we have here for that. But
Yeah.
I'm always curious about that. I'm always curious like where people start as a fisherman, and then like talking obviously about where they're at now, and then like thinking about where they're going forward. But yeah, dude, the Goliath stuff. Every time I look at your pictures, I'm like, geez, this dude's got them figured out. You got pictures where you're holding like more than one of them at the same time, doubles.
I probably have 5 pictures of two big ones side by side at the same time.
How do you make that happen? Are you dropping it like right on? I mean, how are you keeping them off the top of each other?
Like how I said, those weights earlier, like those anchor weights I use. The spot I fish has a lot of heavy current, and we're basically fishing like it blows side to side. So you're gonna need something to hold it down, and we kayak it out. Just space them out evenly. And whenever, like, say you hook up and the fish moves right or the left, you just kind of need to gauge, like, if he's over or under the other line, make sure, they don't get tangled up. That's something you deal with a lot.
You don't have issues with those grappling hooks getting stuck on all the crap on the bottom?
No, not really, honestly. They generally come out,
Yeah. Yeah, I'd played around with the breakaway weights and like the bricks and the rocks, but yeah you're right. Sometimes
I don't like them.
Yeah, well, especially when the current or you get grass, it just ends up taking it away.
Or you get one bite and then you're disconnected from your weight, doing whatever it wants out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Seen that happen plenty of time. And you got to carry a giant brick out to the beach with you, which you already got enough weight as is, man. I don't want to carry 30 pounds of brick.
I've got a couple of my spots. You can find my stockpiles. I've got them little stockpiles next to where I usually fish. But you're right, in the areas where the current's really pushing through, not worth it.
And I also feel like it helps with the Goliaths because I feel like with the breakaways, it might weird them out sometimes. Because like think about how your bait's sitting on the bottom. Like you got your bait. I mean your big breakaway on the bottom. However long your mono is, and connected to your hook, so your bait's just kind of like floating above the bottom.
Yeah,
So
it looks just suspicious
weird.
enough.
It just looks a little weird, and like when they just think about it, when they come up and grab it, I'm sure they feel that line just dangling off. To bait, like
I guess
that.
I guess especially if you're tied to the hook or to there, maybe if you tie it off higher, but then you're just gonna get your bait just spindles around the.
Yeah, like with the hookers I use, I have them on like a sliding snap swivel, so like it's locked into the bottom. But fish grabs it, he's pulling it away. He's not feeling that weight at all until he gets to the leader. And by then, they don't really care. Yeah.
Are you ever doing it by yourself? Are you ever? Or are you usually with a guy? Usually with a crew?
Sometimes, whenever none of the boys want to come out, I end up being by myself. But generally, like whenever I go shark fishing and Goliath fishing, I like to have at least one other person with me just to help, landing it or taking nice pictures or whatever. It sucks to catch a nice fish and you're like, oh well. Guess I'll let him go now. I can't really take with him or nothing.
Well, then you also got to worry about after you drop your bait, you got to paddle real damn quick back.
Yeah,
they pick it up and doesn't take them long to get back in the mess. But
and even just lugging all the gear out there and everything, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, at
least 2 people, but you can do it by yourself. It's just you better be ready to work for it.
Right? Yeah,
that's all.
Well, dude, I know we've been sitting here talking about all these giant fish and like the Goliath things. I know it's on interest of a lot of people who may be listening or people who, I don't know. I feel like that's a one that's really catching. I get a lot of the European guys that reach out to me specifically about the Goliaths, and the guys love to fish from the land and catch the biggest fish from the land. But like people who want to see these photos, 'cause I'm telling you, like the photos you have are awesome. Like that's the thing about the Goliaths. They make like the best picture. They make like the grass.
They just look awesome. They got the big spot, big mouth.
That's pretty much all they're good for, I think, is like, they make a great photo. But but I don't know, anybody who's listening that wants to find these photos and like see your stuff, like where would they be able to find you?
You can follow me on Instagram. It's just Gavin.Schulz. It's Gavin.Schulz. And I've been playing around with TikTok a little bit, just, putting together a bunch of videos and clips I have. So I
haven't treaded into that TikTok territory yet, but my brother's always sending me TikToks. I'm like, I don't have it. I can't see it.
Yeah, I'm not
Maybe
the biggest.
I need to get on board.
But it's easy to make cool little snippet videos to deal with. I'm not the biggest user of it, but yeah. Or pretty much my Instagram is where I put all my cool stuff.
Yeah, well, it's awesome stuff, and I'll end up putting the link up on the video and the description, all that, because it's like people are listening. It's one of the listen. I mean, people need to like see these photos. They're awesome, and I'll throw some of the pictures up too, because they're awesome stuff. But man, I appreciate you coming on here. I bet you want to catch up on some more of that sleep, because 3 hours, 3.5 hours ain't enough.
I'll be all right.
Yeah. That's grinding. It gets harder and harder as time goes on to do that, I think. So
I bet it'd be hard to do this type of fishing.
I'm not an old guy. I'm just saying.
This type of fishing is not easy. Like it'd be hard to do this past 40. I would think it'd be tough. As much as I do it, it'd be tough.
Well, that's awesome stuff, dude. I don't know. I'll have to reach out to you off the record. Maybe we can link up sometime.
Yeah,
We're both Southwest Florida.
I'd be happy
Southwest
to
Florida. And if any of you guys don't want to link up out there and join you, I'd be happy to. Because I don't know. It's been like a solid year since last time I played tug of war with a Goliath. I'm kind of eager to get out there and mess around with them again sometime. So
yeah, man, I'll let you know. Like whenever the water cleans up again up here, you can come up and fish. Should be good for a good minute once it cleans up.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, I appreciate having you on here.
Yeah,
we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having fun talking to you.
Yeah, dude. Take it easy.
You too, man. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Boundless Pursuit podcast. If you enjoyed this show, your feedback, comments, and reviews are very important to me. Also, this podcast is just one element to a much bigger content outlet. I urge you to head over to www.haverodswilltravel.com, where you'll find audio, visual, and written editorial content. That is 3 dimensions of awesome fishing content brought to you by a very dynamic team of anglers. I hope that you'll tune in next week as we continue to build this program and have interesting and skilled anglers each Thursday. Thank you for listening.